Can I hit the record button? All right, so the success criteria, you can see here, I can solve problems involving simple interest where you need to find one of either the interest, the rate, or the time, the principal, or the final amount. And the second dot point is a similar thing, but with compound interest. So, but you'll notice there that I finished off that dot point by saying compounded annually. So when you have a look at your practice exercises, you'll see that sometimes it talks about compounding quarterly or half yearly or monthly. So we'll get onto those problems next lesson or the lesson afterwards. So just keep that in mind, that I'm just keeping it to the annual compound to keep it relatively straightforward. So by now you should have at least written the formulas in. Note that for the compound interest formula, I've given two ways of writing it. That's the one that's in your practice exercises. The amount is given by principal times 1 plus r to the power of t. And this second one here, which is a equals p outside of 1 plus r to the power of n, right? So there's an n there, and then you've got to the power of n times t. And n is just the number of times the interest is calculated over a year. So if it's quarterly, n would be 4. So this is access to how we calculate stuff where it's compounded more frequently than annually. So don't worry about that now. We'll get onto it a little bit later. So let me just zoom up on the problem that I wanted you to have a go at in your workbook. The reason why I asked you to have a look at it, to try it in your workbook, is by trying it, you get a sense of what you need to try and work out. And I asked you to do it in your workbook so that what you'll do eventually is write it in neatly into your summary book. So this will be a good example to use. So let's go through it, and I'll do a solution for you. It's not too bad, but it's just a matter of being familiar with the approach you take, I suppose. So problem 1, Alice buys a car with car financing who charges a flat rate of 10.5% PA per annum for 4 years. It's a flat rate, which means it's what kind of interest? Yeah, it's simple interest. The monthly payments are $2,485. Very well done, Alice. If she paid a deposit of $12,000 to secure the car and the interest was paid on the remainder, then how much did the car cost? So I hope what you can see here is that we have a time period, we have an interest rate, and we have a couple more facts, but what we don't have is, if you like, the principal. So we're going to work that out. Anyone got any questions about, this is the literacy side of things. Does anyone have any questions about what has been sort of covered in that slide there? Because when I go to the next slide, you will miss that information. I'm assuming everyone's at least written it down because they were trying to solve it. If not, hopefully you'll remember. Yeah, okay. So moving on then to the solution itself. So we had quite a few facts there. So the first thing to note is that we need to sort of work out how much Alice actually paid out for the car, including the interest, I suppose. So from Alice's perspective, she spent 4 years paying off that car that she just bought. But the payments were monthly, right? So we'll convert 4 years into months to start off with. So 4 years, I won't insult your intelligence by spelling it out. I'll just write it. 4 years is 48 months. Okay? Yeah, it'll write if you're following on with the web browser, it will write out as you go along, as I go along. Okay, so now that we know how many months that she was paying off that car, we can work out exactly how much she did pay off of that car financing. So we can write, therefore, total cost over 4 years is 48 lots of the 2485. Okay, and that equals $119,280. Okay, so that's how much Alice paid over the 4 years to the car financing company. All right, I'm not too sure how many banks you had to rob in order to do that, Alice, but very well done. Okay, good so far? Well, what does that $119,280 $280 represent? What's included in that value, I suppose? It's the interest. That's not the full story. Because at the end of that 4 years, Alice owns a car. So it's not only the interest, but it's also the principal. Okay? Now, in this case, the principal is not how much the car cost, right? It's how much effectively that Alice borrowed and then paid back over the 4 years. So in other words, it does not include the deposit. But we can say this. So whenever we look at the principal right now, it's not the cost of the car, it's the cost of the car minus the deposit. So we can simply say, though, the principal plus the interest is equal to 119,280. What do you reckon? Is that good so far? I haven't finished. I'm just saying, is it okay so far? Yes? Yep, cool. Anytime that you need to ask questions, please do so, everybody. But we need more facts than that. So there's facts that we haven't used. It's because we've still got two unknowns there, the principal and the interest. We need to find out something else. Well, we do know that there was an interest rate of 10.5% per annum, and we do know that it was over 4 years as well. So we can use that to figure out some stuff as well. So on the next slide, I'm just going to start off by saying, and the interest is equal to principal times the rate, which I'm just going straight into decimal format, just using that bracketed notation again, so I'm not confusing my multiplications, times time. We know that from our simple interest formula. Principal times rate times time. And that's just a calculation that we can do. And that ends up being 0.42p. So just to explain how I did that, on my calculator, I went 0.105 times 4. That got me 0.42. And I still don't know what p is, so I'm left with 0.42 times p. But in algebra, of course, we don't write the times in, so we just write 0.42p. What do you reckon? Is that okay so far? All right, so what we're going to do is, it's like a simultaneous equation. We're going to link this fact and this fact together in order to come up with a new equation. So I can write, therefore, p plus 0.42p must equal $119,920. Oops, 280, sorry. Okay, and just in case you're not too sure, I'll just point out that all I've done is I've replaced I with 0.42p. Okay, I've just swapped it out. Okay. Well, this is good news. It's good news because now we have an equation with a single unknown. So in theory, it should be solvable, and in this case, it is. So I've got p plus 0.42p. So we just add the coefficients together, right? The coefficient of p is 1. So it's 1p plus 0.42p. So overall, we've got 1.42p is equal to 119,280. And so p, by dividing those two things together, is equal to 84,000. Is that okay? So I didn't spell it out, but I'm dividing both sides by 1.42 there. So that gives us a principal of $84,000. Therefore, the car costs $84,000, correct? The car does not cost $84,000. What does the car cost, Isla? Yeah. In other words, 96? Yeah, $96,000, but your process thinking is perfect. Okay, so remember the $84,000 is effectively what Alice borrowed plus the interest in order to get her car. But the car purchase cost must include the deposit as well. So we can conclude with the deposit of $12,000, the car cost 96,000 buckaroonies. And that's it. Okay. So most problems are of a similar nature. Now, this is called, this sort of car financing is sometimes called, with different conditions attached to it, hire purchase. So again, the idea is to use all the information to set up your equations and then reduce it down to a single unknown that you can solve. I deliberately chose one that was more than a couple of steps. A simple thing would have been like, you know, someone invested $20,000 and at the end of it, they had $28,000. If the investment was for 4 years, what is the rate? Okay, that's a fairly straightforward one. You substitute all the values in and work out the unknown. And there are problems like that in your practice exercise booklet. So I deliberately chose one that was quite a few steps. I'm going to write problem 2 down now. I'd like you, please, to write the problem. Sorry, I'm just going to show you actually. To write the problem down in your workbook, and then we'll go through the solution for that as well. I might just give you 5 minutes to see how far you can get in the solution. So there it is.